I want to talk about today a little bit about when it's fine to embellish your resume, right? So I've spoke about this before in one of our other sessions, but I didn't have this fancy chart that I had my designer made because I came up with this axis. I love Cartesian graphs for some reason. You know, it's my background in engineering. I think about everything in intersections of two axes. So I realized this is like the second one that I produced. I don't know. I just like thinking in graphs, engineering background. So this has the more, the graph is more the practical conclusion of a philosophical argument that I make regarding the validity of embellishing your resume, colloquially called, lying on your resume. I don't like calling it lying on your resume because I don't believe you're lying, right? Like if I thought that embellish was the same as lying, I could not condone it, right? Like, so I do not, uh, I do not condone lying, basically. People, just as a shorthand, people refer to lying. I may refer, online, I may say lying, just, again, as a shorthand. But the argument, the philosophical argument that I make is that a lie is a particular kind of misrepresentation of reality, but not all misrepresentations of reality are lies. What I mean by that is that, the best way, the easiest way to think about it is if you think about, for instance, a game of basketball or any other sort of team sports, right? Like sports that are not just a person performing something, but like a team fighting, two teams fighting each other, right? Like a chess player or like any sport that is adversarial, right? Um, let's say again basketball. Let's say basketball. In basketball, you could feign. You have the ball. You're being tag marked by. You're being covered by another player, right? Like he's trying to stop you from scoring, from getting to the basket, and you're trying to get to the basket. In basketball, in this sport, in any sport, you can just feint, right? Like you can misrepresent, misdirect, right? Like make a movement to fool your adversary, right? Like you make him think you do a movement, right, with the express purpose of deceiving him, right? Like you're misrepresenting reality. You're making it seem as if you're going to the right when your actual intention is going to the left. And you do this. This is done purposefully with all, with full accountability of what you're doing, right? And yet we do not say that this is lying. We don't think that this is wrong. We don't think that an athlete, right, a basketball player, feinting, right, and deceiving his opponent, right, like and beating him through this, through this action. We don't think there's anything morally reprehensible with that. We don't think it's unethical, right? Like we don't think it's for it to be ethical that you have to declare your intent, right? Like you can't, like you have to go forward, like you can only go like on a straight line, and you cannot misdirect anything, any of your intentions. Like we don't think about the same. Like think about it in baseball, right? Like all the signals, right? Like the coaches make, like some of them are fake so that to deceive the other team because they may have gotten, right? Like, and the other team spies on you and you spy on them, trying to get the signals. And so like you come up with a bunch of misdirection with the signals so that they don't realize, right, like which one is the real one, or like they're tricked into thinking that it means one thing when it actually means another. We don't, spying on enemy teams, that sort of stuff, like we do. There is a limit to that. But what I mean is that we don't think that these actions constitute lying, right? Even though they do represent, they are misrepresentations of reality. So what this illustrates is that there's, not all misrepresentations of reality are ipso facto lies, right? Like a lie. So when is it a lie, right? Like, so that is the question. So, all right, Rolf, what are you saying? Like, when is it a lie? When is a misrepresentation a lie? You already got me. You convinced me that not every time that you do not represent reality fully as you know it is a lie. So when is it a lie? So it's a lie when you are withholding information, right? Or you are, again, misrepresenting information. You are not, what you are conveying is not what you know is to be true, when the person receiving that information is owed it, right? So when you owe, the other person, your interlocutor, is owed the thing that they're asking, right, for you to say, and you don't say it, right? Like you say something that's not true, that is when you're lying, right? If the person is not owed, right, that particular truth, like such as like your rival in a basketball game is not owed your full intentions, because why is he not owed your full intentions? Because you're allowed, in the rules of the game, you're allowed to feint and all that stuff, right? So because he's not allowed, I'm sorry, because he's not owed your entire game plan, right? Like your entire game plan and like your entire actions and your future plays and that sort of stuff, it's not lying, right? So it's the same. Like you can also, don't think about it in the sports area. Think about it in day-to-day life, right? Like you are walking down the street and there's a stranger or a casual acquaintance, and what do? Hey, how are you doing? How do you do? Hey, what do you do? Hey, how do you do? So let's say that this stranger, this acquaintance, this casual acquaintance asks you like, how are you doing? Like how are things? And things are not fine, right? Like you're going through something, whatever, like things are not fine. Is it lying if you just tell him like, yeah, everything's good, thanks for asking, man, like see you later? Most people would not consider, like, I mean, I guess reality is not consensus based, but like we would not consider that as a lie just because you didn't explain your entire situation to that person. That person, that casual acquaintance was not owed your full attention, like your full account, the full account of your life, right? And so when you do not provide it, right, and instead just gloss it over and say something like, yeah, you're fine, even though you technically are not fine, and it's a misrepresentation of reality because you're actually suffering, you're actually very concerned. This casual acquaintance, this unknown person, is not owed the full account of your life just because they asked for it. Okay. We recognize this in all sorts of ways in life, right? Like it's just recognized all the time, not only in sports and what I just said, also in things like medical records, right? Like we have like HIPAA rules, HIPAA laws, doctor secrecy, lawyer secrecy, priest, confession secrecy, that sort of stuff. Like where we understand that not just because somebody is asked, is requested to submit some sort of information, then not doing it, or then saying something, right, that is not that information to sort of like misdirect, like get the tension, get the pressure off of them. We recognize in some instances that is not unethical, that is not lying, right? So lying is when you withhold the truth, a particular truth, from somebody that is owed that truth, or somebody that is owed that loyalty, right? I see some conversation about one-source jobs in the chat. We'll talk about it later once I turn off the recording. So with that in mind, when it comes to resumes, some embellishment is not lying, because a lot of times the question employers are asking, right, like what the employer is owed, it's like they overextend, right? Like they're owed some sort of response to, they're asking you a question, right? Like with the resume, they post a job listing, and what they're saying is like, what they're asking is like, hey, we need somebody that can perform these tasks, that can perform on this role. Can you do it, right? Like that's basically, if we're going to generalize, if we're going to abstract away what's happening with the job listing and sending your resume, the employer is asking a question, right? Like it's asking, hey, who can do this job? Can you do this job? Can you perform this for me? Can you do it? And you send your resume. The resume is given the response of yes, I can, or either no, or no, I cannot, right? The thing is that employers ask too many. It's like, I want to say they ask too many questions, or like they're completely deceived. They have deceived themselves into, or they feel entitled to know a bunch of irrelevant stuff, or things that don't make sense, that don't go with the job that with performing at the job. And not only do they have all these entitlements that they're not owed, right? they also invalidate valid responses or valid explanations, right? Like they just like summarily dismiss it. Like, hey, I don't care. Like, and there was this this meme. Maybe I should try to find it so I can share it with you guys. But it's basically, it's like two people. You know, one of them asking, it's like, hey, you know, do you have experience picking red apples? And the other guy goes like, well, I have 10 years of picking green apples, right? So I'm pretty sure I can pick red apples. And so the other guy, which represents the employer, he says like, okay, so no experience, right? And I'm sure everybody here has had some experience with that, you know, interacting with employers that way, right? Like they dismiss valid experience, or they inflate the amount, you know, what is required to do the job, and they like invalidate a lot of, you know, people that would honestly just be able to do the job, just because they feel entitled to request all this crazy amount of information that in the end doesn't really matter to the job, right? So when you have the resume, what you're doing is kind of like answering, you're trying to give a true answer, in the sense of like you are conveying that you can do the job, right? Like that you can perform it, but you're presenting it in a way that the employer will not dismiss, right? Because the employer is expecting, they're square, they're expecting it in this, to be conveyed in this sort of skills, and for people to have that experience or that capability of doing the work to be represented in this other way, right? And they're not giving anybody else that does not represent it, that does not convey that information in that particular way that they feel entitled to, they're not giving them a chance, right? So what you're doing is like you're presenting a valid answer. You're saying, yes, I can do the job, to the employer, but in a way that they understand, right? So it's like employers not only think so basically employers believe they're entitled to more than they are, and they believe they're entitled to the answers being given in a particular way. And if it's not given in that particular way, they feel like they can just dismiss you, right? So we can embellish our resume without lying if we're going to see here with the little graph, it explains it. But basically, not every embellishment on your resume is a lie, because if you embellish it for a job that you can do, that you can perform at, that you can do it, right? But you just simply embellish your resume so that you do not get dismissed immediately. And then imagine like you get the job, right? And you're able to work it and you're able to perform at it. Then you did not lie. You correctly answered the question of the employer was asking, can you do the job? You answered, yes, you got the job, and then you did the job, okay? And then you perform at it, you did well, all right? So this sort of embellishment is not, I would not classify it as a lie. Some resume embellishments are lies, obviously, right? Like if you, and I'm going to go into the little chart here, to the little graph. Obviously, if you try to pass off as like a surgeon, a surgeon, right? Like, and you are not a surgeon, that's a little, the stakes a little bit higher there, right? But if you're just going to be like a white collar worker that's just like working on spreadsheets and that sort of stuff, it's like, who cares? Like embellish your resume, tell the employer what they want to hear, and then you get the job, you can work it, right? So you're not hurting anybody, okay? And again, I'm not making a utilitarian argument, right? Like, remember, I'm not saying like, oh, because you're not hurting anybody, then that's fine, right? Like you're not allowed to do evil so that good may come, right? So I'm making the argument that it's not even a lie, if it makes sense, right? Like if you can make if you can perform at the job, right? So we have here the little graph. I think it explains it a little bit better. So what happened here? Hold on, Max, and let me put it full screen. Okay. So I made this little chart here that it has two axes. The x-axis is damage to others, and y-axis is damage to self. So remember that the philosophical argument I'm making is not utilitarian, right? So the definition of this graph is simply so you understand, so that you understand in terms of hurting others, right? Like hurting yourself. But the foundational argument of why it's okay to embellish your resume is philosophical, that you are not lying, that some, embellishment is not necessarily lying, misrepresentation is not necessarily lying. If there is an extra step there, which is the information is owed to somebody, what the other is owed, right? This is more about the implementation of that. Like once you understand this philosophical argument, all right, like now I'm concerned about like I don't want to hurt others, right? Like I just want to, and also I want to make sure that, you know, the more here there's a heuristic which is like the less probable that you're going to hurt somebody else, the more likely the embellishment is actually true. In the sense of like, again, think about the brain surgeon or like any surgeon. If you embellish your resume there and for whatever reason you get the job, well, you lied and now your people are going to get hurt. So, right? So it's an and, right? Like you lied and people are going to get hurt. You could lie and people not get hurt, right? But then there's also the not lying, getting people hurt, and not lying, getting people, not hurting people. So this is more about the implementation of, so it's kind of creating a heuristic of when it's okay to embellish your resume based on, you know, damage to others or damage to yourself, right? So here, you know, like, you know, we go up here, it's like damage to the, sorry, this is why the y-axis. I got confused for a second. So this is damage to self, and this is damage to others. Obviously, like here, you know, the positive numbers, you are not hurting. So this is like you are not hurting others. You are providing value to others. The more you move to the right on the x-axis, and this is negative territory. So will you hurt others, right? Like so, the far left you are on the x-axis, the more you know, you're hurting other people. Here, like you're actually not hurting them, you're providing value. Here, you're hurting them. And on the y-axis, we have damage to self. So on the positive side, like on the upper side, like the positive numbers here on the y-axis, is like, do you already come off as an expert, right? Like it's like, hey, you know, can you, you know, like, are you the opposite of humiliating yourself, which is this one here? Like, do you risk appearing as a fool, right? Like you're going to damage yourself. You're going to damage your reputation, right? Like if you come off as an expert, you're not damaging your reputation, right? Like you know, there's no damage being done. If you come up like a moron, then yeah, you're damaging yourself. Okay. So basically, if you are here, if you can come off as an expert, even if you can hurt others or you will provide value to others, here, let's like, I'm getting ahead of myself. So no, I actually am not. I was explaining correctly. Sorry. So yeah, if you're here in this part, like high above the, you know, you can come off as an expert. You probably don't need embellishment at all because you probably are an expert, right? Like it's very hard to fake being an expert. So if you already are an expert, you don't need embellishment of your resume, right? So the embellishment happens like below here, right? Like when you're kind of like, well, you're not that, you know, you're not quite adept at the subject matter yet. So this is where the fun begins of like when it's okay, when it's not okay, right? So I say here that it's totally fine to embellish your resume, right? If there's very little risk of you damaging, you know, you appearing as a fool, and you will provide value to others, right? Like there's very little risk of you damaging others. As a matter of fact, odds are that you're going to provide value to others. You know, it could be your family, it could be your employer. You know, you're going to fill a vacancy that they have, and you're going to provide. You're going to be able to actually perform at the job. So you're actually going to be providing value to others. So in this situation, right, the heuristic is that it's totally fine to embellish. In this case, it's like you can embellish, right? Like you could, right? Like you could do it, but you're probably going to hurt others, so you probably shouldn't do it, right? Like because hey, you know, again, think of something. I mean, being a surgeon is a little bit extreme because it's like, how are you going to fake being a surgeon? But I guess people have done it, right? So it's like the fact that you can doesn't mean that you should. Okay, and then below when we dipped to like, well, now you're actually risking damaging, you know, your reputation, coming up as a little bit stupid, as a fool. If it's a little, like if the risk is a little bit, you should still go for it, right? Like if it's like we're here, we're like close to the axis, close to like being neutral about it, you should still go for it. Further down below, the more that you're going to risk, right? Making a fool of yourself, but you're not going to hurt anybody. Remember that while we are here, we're not hurting anybody else. Like at worst, in this case, in this quadrant, we're hurting ourselves. Like we're not hurting anybody else. We're only hurting ourselves. The more likely it is that you are going to hurt yourself, then, you know, maybe you should still, maybe it's worth a try, but maybe you want to think about it. the less likely it is that you're gonna hurt yourself with the embellishment of the resume, right? Like you're not gonna look like a moron. Yeah, go for it, right? So basically here, it's like as long as you're not hurting anybody, it's probably okay, and it's just a matter here of like your own personal risk tolerance. Of like like if you don't mind looking like an idiot, so you can learn. How to interview for a position because you want to do it, you can do it, then yeah, maybe go for it, right? Here, it's like you're not going to hurt yourself, but you're going to hurt others. So basically means that you can embellish your resume, but shouldn't. And here, this quadrant, where it's like you're going to hurt yourself and you're going to hurt others, it's like, what's even the point, right? Like, don't even try. Like, there's nothing to gain here. It's all lost. I guess you could say that in a sense, this doesn't exist because you're never even going to get the job, right? Like if you're going to make a fool of yourself, you're not even going to, it's not possible for you to then be given the job and hurt others. So it's kind of like this is like a fictitious quadrant, right? Because it's very unlikely for it to ever happen. But it's still Cartesian graph. So I gotta, you gotta have something here. So it's like, don't even think about it. Like you're just like, this is just net loss on society, on everybody else. So the real danger when you are lying, right? Like the most likely scenario where you will be lying, and more than lying, you will hurt others, is this where you can pass yourself as somebody that could do the job, but the job is actually something like important. I don't know. Let's think not surgeon, but like air traffic controller, something like that. Something where people's lives, like airplane pilot, something like that, where it's like, yeah, maybe you could fake it and make it, but there's a high risk of you ruining somebody's life, right? So, and the more likely that is, you're going to ruin somebody's life. So the logic is that you're going to ruin, you're going to hurt somebody because you don't actually know how to do the thing. The thing is important. There are risks involved. And so you're most likely lying here, right? If it's totally fine to embellish, it's in the sense of like you're actually going to be able, if you're providing value to others, it's because you are doing the job. You could do the job. You said that you could do the job. You're doing it. So it's not a lie here. So again, so this is so you understand how the philosophical argument kind of like is hooked to this heuristic, right? Because I'm not making a utilitarian argument. I'm making philosophical argument about lying and then having like a heuristic on top of it. All right. So anyway, that is what I wanted to say about when it's fine to embellish your resume. This is a contentious topic, but one that I'm very passionate about because it's very important. Like I've seen it enough times to know that employers are just like, they're just crazy. They're just like super entitled, like incredibly entitled. And they the types of jobs that people, like movies, emo jobs, basically. It's like, man, like you don't need to be like a super dude, a super experienced guy to do the job. Like most white collar jobs, to be honest, they could be done by intelligent high schoolers with some training, but employers do not provide the training. They do not have patience to train people. Most of them, obviously, obviously disclaimer, not everybody is like that, right? Like there's the Naxalt argument, not all X are like that, right? So that's kind of obvious, but you always have to say it. But I've seen it, right? I've seen it too many times on my personal experience and working with many of our clients, right? And personal life as well, like others, family members, my brother, my father, my uncle, that sort of stuff. Like employers are just insanely entitled, like they're crazy, like they're owed, they're owed something. Like it's not like they're not owed anything. But it's just crazy, like the amount of things that they request. Again, like, do you have experience picking red apples? Yeah, no, I have experience picking, 10 years of experience picking green apples. Okay, so you have no experience. That sort of stuff. Like that's a joke, that's a meme, but it is on that level of where it's like, insane things, right?